Welcome to Safe Doesn't Scale. I'm your host, David Walsh, founder of Limelight. This show is for marketing and growth leaders with a chip on their shoulder who are tired of playing it safe. I am so excited today. I've got Megan Bowen, one of the best, most well-recognized B2B marketing leaders on the pod. Megan, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
We have so much to chat about. I think, firstly, for those that don't know, Megan is the CEO of Refine Labs, and Refine Labs is one of the most, I suppose, well-respected B2B agencies and marketing agencies. Why don't you tell the audience who are listening to this a little bit about Refine Labs?
Yeah, we're a B2B marketing agency. We got started in 2019, so we've been at this about 7 years. We've helped over 300 B2B SaaS and tech companies drive more qualified pipeline. We provide a variety of services from demand strategy and reporting, paid advertising execution, content production, all with the goal of driving better business outcomes for our clients.
That is awesome. Well, the people listening to this are typically mid-cap marketing leaders looking for different growth strategies, and learning from you is going to be something that I'm sure they're going to cherish. So I want to start with AI. I mean, we kind of have to get to the point. I suppose the question is, what in the age of AI, what's changed when clients think about demand creation or buyer intent signals? Like, I feel like the landscape is changing quite a bit and marketing leaders need to be more advanced with AI. What's your perspective on this and what's changed?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of important points to make here. So the first thing is, whenever there's a new technology that emerges, I think the most important thing that marketers should first think about is, how does this change how B2B behave? And so I think the most obvious and common buyer behavior change that is happening because of AI is that more and more buyers will use ChatGPT, Claude, whatever, to essentially research and look for solutions. And so that is the prominent change that's happening today, where most, before AI, people would use Google search and people would discover new products and services on social media. Engaging with LLMs has become a primary way that buyers learn about and discover brands. So the irony of this is that companies that have just focused on doing really strong marketing anchored in true fundamentals in terms of clear positioning and messaging, investment in brand, investment in PR, even digital PR. Those are the companies that are actually today being cited in this research in whatever, preferred LLM the buyer is using. And so I think that may or may not be a hot take, but I think that what's happening today is people are obsessed with trying to build AI agents or AI workflows to make their marketing more efficient, and they are losing the plot. They are not paying attention to what actually matters, which is, what is your positioning? What is your differentiated messaging? What is your brand strategy? How are you adopting what you're doing digitally so that you can be discovered where more and more people are going to be discovering products and services? And so I think people are obsessed with the wrong thing. People want to automate, be efficient, use cool tools, say that they've built an AI agent. And I don't blame them, because you spend 2 seconds on LinkedIn and, you walk away feeling like if you're not doing that, you're an idiot. But it's not actually the most important thing. And so the buyer behavior change is critical, but the irony is that true marketing fundamentals are more important than ever.
Yeah, I mean, such a good point. I feel like everyone jumps to the hottest thing and forgets all the basics, Yep. I also think, this might be a bold statement, but I feel like marketing leaders have somewhat become lazy. It's like, how do I fast track my board, my team, my leadership team are looking for short-term wins. We need to show trajectory. We need to show we're competing against others. And they kind of just go with what automates and what gets the fastest, metric pop or something like that, but actually then forget about all of the other things that are more critical and compound better. Selfishly, we're actually launching AI agents and AI employees for marketing leaders, in the coming weeks. So I'd love to chat to you more about that, and, how we're thinking about supporting some of these marketing leaders doing, I suppose, manual and more labor intensive marketing channels, and how we can help them with that. But I suppose You mentioned content. So I want to come to that, right? We're obviously pretty big on content here at Limelight. I think I decided to go build in public from day one, put myself out there. It is still a learning process, but I've enjoyed it tremendously. And I think this content, trying to stand out in today's market where everyone sort of feels and looks the same, I think content can actually be that authentic voice or that part of the brand. When you're advising a client and they have some content, but they're trying to invest in more content, what are you suggesting?
Yeah. So the first thing is we need to anchor in what your story is. What is your strategic narrative? What is your differentiated positioning? A lot of companies have not realized that with the shift into the AI era, they can't assume that the position and the messaging that they've been using up until this point will remain relevant. And so, what I'm finding is a lot of people need to go through that exercise again and really understand what has changed for their buyer. How has the AI era impacted their buyer's reality? And how does their product remain relevant in these changing conditions that their buyer is having? And because of all of these external changes that are happening, have they actually sat down and spoken to their buyers and have gotten validated input in terms of pain and benefit in terms of using their whatever product or service that they have. And so actually running a strategic narrative exercise, running buyer research, that is the most important thing. And especially with any type of content production out there, and with the commoditization of that with AI, the most important thing is actually what you are saying, not how you're
Mm,
producing the content. And that context and that unique point of view, that is the most important thing for a content strategy. And so, you kind of mentioned like, I don't know if I would say, I don't know if I agree with marketing leaders are lazy. I think that the problem that we're experiencing is that marketing leaders are under an incredible amount of pressure and they resort to doing the thing that they can point to or that they feel will demonstrate their worth within an organization, regardless of what is actually best for the organization. And so, one of the things that I've developed and that we're doing is we've developed this concept of a marketing maturity model and this assessment that allows us to work with a marketing leader and look at their entire go to market strategy across sales, marketing, customer success, and actually develop a business perspective on what gaps exist within the go to market strategy and engine. And these are very common things like clear strategic narrative, clear positioning, a clear content strategy, among a lot of other things. And this is what I think marketing leaders need to do to have a seat at the table. They don't need to come and say, here are the tactics we're going to implement for my org. They're going to say, I've looked at the business and have a point of view on what we're doing
mm,
well and what we're not doing well and what we need to do to close the gaps that exist, and how me as a marketing leader is going to work with the sales leader and the customer success leader to actually drive better business outcomes overall. That's the opportunity for marketing leaders, and being able to do that despite the intense pressure that they're under to deliver and perform, and to basically be performative in terms of, well,
mm.
I automated this workflow with AI, so like, great, I win, I did it. It's like, did that actually impact business results? I don't know.
Right. Right, right. I mean, you make a great point. I think, ironically, in today's world, I think it's easier to stand out from other than in the crowd because of the wash of AI marketing strategies and techniques and messaging and positioning. Like, if you actually were thoughtful about it, and as you said, broke down every single component and says, how are we unique and different, and revamping our messaging, I think what you're saying is it would have a much bigger impact than automating some basic manual task, which I actually love. I think something to think about is like, what's changed when it comes to measurement and attribution, because this is something that I think every marketing leader gets under that pressure cooker of like, I've made this bet. I think of marketing as experiments, right? You're trying to do certain experiments. Some are bigger than others. You make this big bet, and then it's like, okay, we have to wait 30, 60, 90, maybe 180 days to see the impact of that. And so a broad question, but how has measurement and attribution changed in your mind, and what should people be focused on? Because I know you've got a wealth of knowledge in that space too.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people know Refine Labs because we used to, and we still leverage self reported attribution. How did you hear about us? The reality is we work with mid market and enterprise companies, and there's a few dynamics at play. Number one, most of these companies have been using last touch attribution for a long time. So it has to be a component of the measurement strategy, but not the entire thing. The second thing is nobody really knows how to measure brand effectively. And so what we've been focused on over the last, 18 months in particular is developing a new set of brand measurement strategies on top of self-reported attribution that have more defensibility, like, to the CEO or the CFO. And so there's a few things that we're doing. Number one, actually looking at share of search trends over time is a really concrete, clear way that CEOs and CFOs get in terms of investment in brand marketing and an increase in branded search over time. So that's become a really important input. It's not the only thing that matters, but it's part of the measurement story overall. The second is, especially for executive teams that are very skeptical, we have been focusing on running controlled incrementality experiments. And so, for example, a big client we worked with, the C-suite was pretty skeptical of brand advertising on LinkedIn. We took their entire target account list, we split it in half. One half of the list, we deployed brand advertising programs through LinkedIn. Through the other half of the list, we did not. We did that for 120 days. We monitored the impact in terms of inbound and pipe creation for both of those groups. And guess what? The group that received the LinkedIn brand advertising had 60% more qualified pipeline created within that 4-month time period than the other group, right? That controlled experiment with buy-in up front was enough for them to say, yeah, okay, we get it now, and we want to continue to, let's start advertising to that other group of people that haven't been getting that advertising, right? And so, and there are a lot of other ways you can design incrementality tests, whether it's geo-specific, so there's lots of options. That's just one specific example that worked really well. And then lastly, it's actually partnering with the CFO to look at marketing investments from a CFO perspective. What if we actually look at your total all-in investment relative to your total new business acquisition? And what is the actual ROI and contribution margin on those investments? And so that becomes a very objective lens. It's not about a particular program. It's not about a particular channel. It's actually just looking at it big picture. So when you piece all of these things together, there is no one way to measure anything. You have to look at it through multiple lenses, and you want to look at it through the channel lens, the program lens, also at like in aggregate as well. So elevating our approach to brand measurement has been a big focus of ours, and that has been how we can help our clients make the case internally to the right stakeholders.
I honestly love that. It's actually, it's so interesting. Let me think of it slightly differently, or a different kind of take on this, which is I'm a marketing leader, a mid-cap company. I'm a team of 10 people, 15 people, right? Everyone has their own domain expertise, but we know internally that we haven't analyzed or critically analyzed our paid ad spend and paid marketing channels enough. And we feel in our brains that there's probably more optimization. There's probably wasting of budget that's happening right now. So, and I think this is for most marketing leaders, right? They're like, how do I, if I'm not given more budget, how do I get more out of the current budget, right? Mm-hmm. And I think, assessing those channels and going in deep into them and actually, uncovering ways in which, you can improve the paid spend is obviously super important. But what, from your perspective, what's the biggest waste of budget? Like when you go in and you analyze these big companies spending millions of dollars on paid channels or even organic content, like where are you advising? Where do you see the trends of like, this is actually the biggest waste of budget right now?
Yep.
Yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I would say that there's probably two, typical culprits in terms of wasted spend. Google Ads has just gotten so expensive, and people will just turn on PMax or AI Max, and Google will continue to make recommendations on what to bid on, and they'll just be like, okay. And what a lot of people don't do is set up appropriate conversion tracking within Google and whatever their internal systems are, whether that's HubSpot or Salesforce. And what I tell people is Google actually is the most directly attributable channel that you will be running advertising on. You can directly connect conversions to whether or not they actually become an opportunity or a customer. And you should only be funding campaigns where you have validated pipeline creation and closed won customers associated with those campaigns. And a lot of people just don't have proper conversion tracking set up and don't know how to look at their Google ad spend through that particular lens. So that's a huge focus for us. We're often able to drive the same or better results for 30% less just by auditing Google and making some of those changes as well. The other culprit is LinkedIn is super expensive, and every B2B company thinks that they should advertise on LinkedIn. And the truth is, most of them should, but they should not be running direct response. They should be treating it as more of a brand awareness channel. If they have a really compelling and good offer, request a demo is not a good offer, then they can consider direct response as part of their campaign mix. But I would say they're either running the wrong types of campaigns on LinkedIn that become expensive and don't actually produce or convert to pipeline, or they're in an industry where they should actually consider other paid social channels, but they default to LinkedIn because they think that's what's best. And they don't consider Meta or Reddit or other channels that could be a better fit based on their actual audience.
Well, firstly, I'm guilty of just assuming that Google is giving me the best suggestions and then just approving them and then not adding the conversion links. So I feel like doing this podcast, when I started a few months ago, I was like, it'll be so much fun for creating great content and having good conversations, but I actually just learn a ton. And then it reminds me of what I haven't done and what I need to do. So it's selfishly very self-fulfilling in many ways. I think stepping back for a sec, marketing in general, I feel if you think, and I love your take, it's like, let's think through the lens of the buyer. The buyer journey has changed. Now people are being influenced in different ways, right? They're not just influenced and they don't want to just see a big corporate logo hitting them on the head every time they click to a new social channel or being followed around the place or getting bombarded into their email inbox. They're actually influenced, in my opinion, like more upstream, right? Like more, the awareness stage happens sooner than even when they get onto the website, right? From reading newspapers, reading newsletters, listening to podcasts, scrolling news feeds, things like that. So I always think that, I don't know if you agree with this, but marketing feels like in B2B, it's becoming more personalized, not personalized, personified. Like people want to see a person and a face and a name, instead of just a logo. So when you're advising clients and customers, how do you help them maybe elevate or think through who's the spokesperson at the company or external from the company that we can use to promote the product in an authentic way?
Yeah. So my view on this, and I recognize that Refine Labs was born and built from a founder brand.
Sure.
And I'll tell this story because I think it's relevant. So when we started the agency, obviously Chris was the voice of Refine Labs, but we did not diversify. That was our entire strategy. And so what I say is, a founder brand or an executive brand, that is not a strategy, it is an asset. And so it's a hugely valuable asset, and it can drive incredible success when executed well, to have a face, an evangelist that is recording content, posting on social media. But that is one part of a broader strategy that needs to be developed so that you're diversifying from one voice. And so what I always say is, a founder brand is an asset, it's not a strategy. We do think, though, however, having subject matter experts, evangelists, executives, the founder, the CEO, right? It can be a lot of different roles or people within the company. Having them create content and distribute content to where their buyers are spending time absolutely fosters trust faster, develops credibility, humanizes the brand, creates that association, that there's these people or these humans behind the company, incredibly valuable. But it does not replace having a full, well-rounded go-to-market strategy that includes, you know, product marketing, content marketing, paid marketing, event marketing, right? You need to be considering all of those things. And so for
Mm.
people that are making the choice to invest in founder brand or exec brand, personal brand, absolutely, it's massively valuable, but that is only one part of your strategy. It's not a strategy in and of itself.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I would agree. I think at the beginning, in the early stages at least, you're trying to figure out what's the one or two channels that's cost effective, right? That I can grow without investing. Obviously, you're investing a lot of time, but without investing a whole lot of budget. And then I think you're dead right. Like we're at that moment internally where I'm like, I need more channels. Like right now, it's just my social, just my founder brand. What are the other things that we should be testing right away?
And that's what happened with us. Our founder
Yeah.
decided to start a new business and walk away, and we had a major impact. So our inbounds went down 50%, and it took us 18 months to rebuild back up to the volume that we had, because we never had diversified at all. So
Wow.
there's a major recovery period if you're not smart about it. And so I know in many ways we are of the poster child of the founder brand, but we also had a very challenging transition once the founder
Sure.
decided they wanted to focus on something else. And so it's just something that is, you don't want your entire marketing strategy for a business to be reliant on one person.
When somebody's listening to this and they're a smaller marketing team and they're thinking about, what to outsource versus hire for, I've always believed that like subject matter experts and domain expertise and finding the best possible people is really important. But at the same time, at the earlier stage, you want a generalist marketeer who can actually cover a lot of ground and then probably project manage. So, question for you is like, what do you feel like is the natural thing to outsource and trust others with? And what are the things that you absolutely should keep internally and hire for and not, separate? And take that question whichever way we want, because I think there's many ways you could think about it in a hybrid model too.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I generally agree with your point of view. I think product marketing, content marketing should be internal. Now, there could be external consultants that you engage for product marketing. There could be external partners in terms of content execution, but you really do want that subject matter expertise in house. It's really hard to outsource that in particular. I do think for things like, paid channels, I think having external support there, because you have people that are constantly developing and maintaining expertise in those channels, and also access to a lot of other data beyond your company in terms of what's working and not working. And so I usually like to think about specific channel expertise as being a great thing to outsource, but making sure that you're building a team internally to have like the core marketing foundations in place. So narrative, pricing, overall content strategy. You really want those roles in house, because those become so important to have, like, be really embedded in the customer for that particular company.
Mm. Something you said there really resonated, which is, and many things that you shared have resonated, but this one specifically, it's like if you work with an outside paid channel agency or expert, they have a lot of data, right? They understand what is good versus bad. And I think, or what is working versus not working based off metrics and benchmarks and other things that they've tested. Where I think when you're under pressure as a marketeer and you're spending money and you're like, I think this is good. I'm not sure if this is good. I don't really know. I don't have anything to test off. I think that's actually such an important component of like, you need somebody to trust when you're, especially when you're spending money and you're like, I hope this is optimized correctly. I want to transition to customer advocacy. It's something I've been deep in recently,
Mhm.
right? Which is, we work with companies, we help them with influencer marketing, employee social listening, and now customer advocacy. And those are sort of the four AI employees that we want to help our marketing leaders hire for and be supported with using these agents. And I think customer advocacy is such an interesting one. And I think there's two buckets to it, right? It's referrals in one side, which is
Mhm.
like get customers to introduce more customers, but then it's content, case studies, testimonials, that type of thing. What in your mind is that makes great customer advocacy, and how do you use it in a paid marketing or organic marketing mix.
Yeah.
And again, take that question whichever way you want. It's like customers are there, they're using the product. Like, how do we use them for marketing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the plays we do for probably almost every customer we work with is basically taking customer success stories, case studies, testimonials, and deploying those through paid channels, right? And that can be to companies in pipeline, it can be to cold audiences. But, we're talking a little bit about, founder brand or executive brand. Actually having your customers speak on your behalf, I think are even more powerful than that. And so, number one, you need to develop a system and emotion internally to capture those case studies and testimonials. And then you need to be actively getting that in front of your audience. I think that'll
Mm.
continue to become more and more important as a strategy overall. And like, oh, yeah, don't forget, you also have to do the work to surprise and delight your customers and deliver on the value that you promise for you to be able to get that type of stuff. But that sounds really cool that you're expanding in that area. I think that's really smart.
Well, yeah, I can quickly share you as to like talk you through the thought processes. I suppose we've done 2.5 years of influencer marketing and social listening and content, and we have all of this data. We're like, what are agents and things that we can create that can't be replicated and that are unique to us? And then we speak with heads of marketing. We're like, what are the channels that you want to grow but are very manual and intensive? And we felt like customer advocacy and employee social are two like very hard ones to advocate and hard ones to grow. And we thought that would be the best place to start. And it's been a fun journey. I mean, look, we're I want to be building technology and at this cutting edge of, I hate that word, but cutting edge of technology, and agents is something that's very fun to build. The big question is, can we support and bring value to these marketeers and get them to trust these agents and actually help them versus hurt them? And I think that kind of adoption and trust will be the most challenging part. Selling and marketing it is going to be the fun part, and we've got a new website, new video that I'm excited about, but
Cool.
actually getting to people to adopt it will be hard, and hopefully we'll learn a lot in the process. Anything else that you wanted to share that's working internally at Refine Labs and for some of your clients, like any examples or stories or I suppose campaigns that you're really proud about that your team have run recently?
Yeah, kind of building on the point that you brought up, we're seeing more and more companies being willing to invest in video. And so, seeing a lot of success on YouTube, a lot of success with CTV experiments as well. We've been doing more and more out of home and supporting clients both with actual, creative and then also managing the placement of that as well. And so I think more and more we're going to see that becoming a priority in ways that it hadn't before, reinforcing the point you brought up in terms of how can people, watch something and really feel and be immersed in your message and what you're doing, and, see people like them using whatever it is you're offering to get the benefit or the value that they want. And so that's been pretty cool to see that. I would say my biggest focus right now going into, just being in the AI era is trying to be that voice of reason and anchoring in marketing fundamentals. So this maturity model, we're working on developing an AI enabled experience on our website where people can get some information that way and continue to work with us directly to like expand on that. I think that businesses that will win are going to focus on doing the fundamentals right and being really strategic on where they implement AI and being really intentional about where they insist human judgment, taste, and creativity are not supplanted by AI.
That's amazing. For most of my career, I spent my time in HR tech and talent acquisition technology and job advertising. But I always thought of myself as a marketeer. I went to college, did marketing, did a master's in marketing. Now I get to sell to marketing leaders and chat with marketing leaders like yourselves. And I just find it so much more interesting and exciting. So I just want to say, Megan, thanks for coming on and thanks for joining. I feel like you just dropped so many different knowledge bombs that I'm going to have to go back and watch this. Where do people learn more about you and Refine Labs?
You can find us at refinelabs.com, and I am on LinkedIn, so you can find me on LinkedIn.
Nice. If you haven't seen Megan's content on LinkedIn, definitely go. I was snooping on it recently and I was like, wow, you've got some great content. So thanks again for joining us, and we'll have to do it again soon.
Thanks, David.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Safe Doesn't Scale on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. Limelight is the leading AI-powered B2B influencer marketplace and social signals platform. Brands like HubSpot, Webflow, and ZoomInfo use Limelight to power influencer programs at scale. Start your first campaign at limelihq.com.